Jeimer Candelario will be on the Cincinnati Reds roster in 2025, and there are two very elementary reasons as to why.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We have over 12 years of experience combined covering the Cincinnati Reds in podcast form. We've taken our love for the Reds, our love for baseball, and we've turned that into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's podcast, we are live. So we're going to be taking your questions and comments coming up here in a little bit. But we are going to begin with Jeimer Candelario and why he is going to be a member of the Cincinnati Reds in 2025. We'll look at some reasons for optimism with him, and we'll look at some reasons for doubt about whether or not he can turn it around and be the player that at least Nick Krall hoped he was going to be when he gave him that great big fat contract. So we're going to get into all of that. That's all coming up on today's podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets back if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, Jeff, Jeimer Candelario, Nick Krall brought him into Cincinnati to be a bit of that veteran leadership that everybody said the team lacked. They brought him in to have some versatility at first base and at third base. They brought him in to have a switch hitting guy that could play every day. That's the theory. That's what Nick told us when Jeimer arrived in town. And it didn't exactly go that way.
Not quite. In fact, according to Baseball Reference, as far as regular players go, he had the worst value on the lineup. He had -6 or -0.6, 0.6 wins above replacement, which was even lower than Santiago Espinal's total value, and it was lower than Ty France's total value to the team. So it's been obvious, and I've seen lots of people making the point, well, you got to trade him. You got to get rid of him. There are two reasons why the Reds are going to have Jeimer Candelario coming up this next season. We're going to hear his name on March 27th at Great American Ballpark when the Giants come to town. He's untradeable right now, and the Reds have 2 more guaranteed years on his contract. He has no trade value, coming off of one of the worst seasons of his career outside of hitting homers. He hit 20 dingers last year, second year of 20 or more home runs. What's up, Robobug? So that's not great. And the fact that he is going to be 31 years old next year, it's not as if he is entering his prime. He's on the other side of his prime. So you're not going to get a lot of value out of him, if any at all. The other part of this is they're not just going to cut him because they would have to hand him $30 million. He's guaranteed $15 million this year, $12 million next year. And if they do not pick up his club option for 2027, they owe him a $3 million buyout. So neither one of those things are going to happen. He's going to be here next year.
He is going to be here next year. And for all the reasons that you said, that's one of the things that frustrates me the most when we talk about player X has had a terrible year, trade him. That guy is a bum. He's horrible. Trade him.
He's a bum.
Why would anybody take him? I mean, just think that's how you're going to open your conversation, right? This is Nick Krall. Yeah, I'm calling about.
We don't want him.
We don't want him. Yeah. Do you mind giving us some pitching for him? It's just not the way it's going to work. Now, all of these things being said, Jeff, I don't think that the Jeimer Candelario that we saw last year was the real Jeimer Candelario. I think he's going to be a little bit better than that. I think that, he played through some injuries because this team at times was just in sad shape. And he kept going out there playing the DH position when he shouldn't even have been on the field just to keep a bat in the lineup. Any bat. I'm not saying keep his bat in the lineup. I'm saying keep a bat in the lineup. You know, it was a choice.
Keep them from going and picking Mike Ford back up off the waiver
Exactly.
wire.
That's exactly what happened with him. So who is Jeimer Candelario? I don't know anymore. Is he an everyday switch hitting major leaguer? Maybe not, but I'm going to try and with reserve judgment, see how he looks in Goodyear, see how he performs, and hope that if he is entering that decline phase, if he is becoming a guy that can't be an everyday switch hitting 162 type of guy, that the Reds will at least be healthy enough that they can pick their spots with him. Because you're right, he's going to be on this roster. They can pick their spots with him and get him the DH starts, get him the occasional start in the field. You're going to continue to pay him, but put him in situations to be successful, right? That's my mantra all the time. Yeah. Players in position to be successful, for them to be able to do their best. Well, that's what they got to do with Jeimer. And it's not, oh, we know you're hurt, but get out there and hit anyway. You know, that was not him being put in the best situation to be successful. So all that being said, Jeff, I'm not overly excited that there's multiple years left on this deal, but also I'm not ready to just say, oh my God, it's a total bust. I want to wait and see what happens in 2025.
Right, and I kind of want to marry a different take that I heard from some folks into this idea as to what the reason for Candelario still being here will be. And the same reason that Candelario is here is why Ty France was here in the first place. In fact, the reason that the Reds made a desperation move for Ty France is because they lost Jeimer Candelario. They would not have traded for Ty France if Candelario was hurt. The point being, they have sort of a safety net, a bit of a fallback option for their corner infield spot. Now, does $15 million, is that money well spent on a fallback option? No, that's a different argument from this. Is Jeimer Candelario money well spent is a different topic for a different day. The reason that Candelario is going to be here is because they need that person behind CES, behind whoever it is at third base, or he is the guy at third base. And especially at DH and stuff like that, they're going to put him probably 5th, 6th in the lineup, something like that, and we're going to hope for a bit of power. In fact, if I can kind of draw on this France point for one more second, there was an interesting quote. Mark Sheldon had an article on Reds.com talking about in-house corner infield options, and there was a quote from Nick Kroll in that article talking about why the Reds were okay letting Ty France go. He said, "We could have held it out, but honestly allowing him to walk now cleans up some of our roster. We know we probably weren't going to tender him a contract, and it just made it a little cleaner to do it now." That's a quote directly from Nick Kroll in this article by Mark Sheldon. The point being, Jeimer Candelario is their plan A when it comes to infield depth, when it comes to infield continuity, and that is another reason to add on to his contract stipulates that he will be here.
Right, well, and I'm still not sure who's going to play third base. I mean, is it going to be Noelvi Marte? Is it going to be Spencer Steer? Is it going to be Jeimer Candelario? It wasn't going to be Ty France, that's for sure. So no. You got to keep. Exactly. I mean, it's hard when your neck doesn't move, Jeff. You know, cut the guy some slack. You have to keep the guys around that can be those multi-part tools, right? And Jeimer does have that going for him. In a pinch, you put him at third base, he's going to field the ball. You put him at first base, he's going to field the ball. I would imagine you could stick him in a corner outfield in an emergency and he would probably catch the ball. So I could see that happening. I want to, you get away with all your geeky, nerdy Star Wars references all the time. And I tolerate it. I want to go to this from the RoboBuck talking about Jeimer Candelario. It says he's untradeable on OOTP unless you retain 100% of his salary. If you don't know what OOTP is, Google it and go start playing it. I have wasted countless number of hours on that particular game, but that's a story for another day. That's my little geeky moment of like baseball.
It's the front office portion of like playing like the franchise mode on MLB The Show is how I understand. I've actually never played OOTP.
I've been playing it since version 3, Jeff. Oh, outside of the part 3 was the first one I bought, and they're in like 25 25 or 30 or I don't know however long it's been, but it's amazing.
You know, good old day stories notwithstanding. That's exactly what the Reds would have to do if they were looking to get rid of him. They would have to eat all of his money, going back to the fact they'd have to hand him a check for $30 million. And they're not going to do that. But I think outside of that, he does provide a bit of comfortability with this roster when he's going to be back this next year. So there are reasons for optimism, yes, and I want to get into those coming up next, but also there are some reasons for concern as to, is he going to bounce back at all? We'll discuss that coming up next. You can tackle the NFL action over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you could check out all the latest stats, the view, the live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And while you're there, you can also check out some baseball action like, futures, next year's World Series odds. The value right now on the Reds will never be better. 60-1 currently to win the 2025 World Series. Terry Francona says, hold my beer. Just saying. Might be good to get in now before the Reds shopping spree begins. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are talking Cincinnati Reds baseball here today, every day, all month long, all year long. All throughout the offseason. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Reds to get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk in your feed every single day. And we're looking at maybe some silver linings, maybe a couple of reasons to be optimistic about a turnaround. I really think that Pierre kind of hit the nail on the head earlier on in the show, and I want to go back to his comment. He said, I trust Tito to get the best out of the entire roster, including Candyman. And that's kind of where I want to start. There's not like a ton of deep analysis to provide when it comes to a managerial thing, but Terry Francona knows how to get the best out of guys. And I think that's kind of where you begin with anybody looking to make a turnaround this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very, I guess it's very hope is our strategy. We hope. We hope that Candy shows up and is that guy he was before he got here. And you look at his numbers. I mean, the fact that he managed to still crank out a 90 OPS plus, given the way that he started, given the way that he played hurt. I mean, just when you look at things like that, you have to ask yourself, well, if he could still muster a 90, knowing what we know, knowing that it was a historically bad start for him to the point where I was ready to have him abducted when I was watching that Texas series down at the ballpark.
Just in case you forgot, 189 batting average, 659 OPS in the month of April. That's what we're talking about. Bad start.
Yes. Yeah. So historically bad start. And then he continued to play hurt, but he did have stretches in there where he was really good. And that led to the 90 OPS plus. So I feel like if you want to be in the business of hope, if you want to be in the business of, let's not even call it hope, Jeff. Let's call it, if you want to be in the business of the benefit of the doubt and say, here's who he's been his career. Here's his war for his career. He's been a major league player war-wise his entire career. Then I think you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt heading into 2025 and say the things that caused him problems in 2024 are remedied. The injuries and maybe just how he was being used, because that guy got fired. So you take those two things into account. Maybe we operate when we go to Goodyear with the benefit of the doubt in mind.
Yeah, because I mean, look, there are 3 reasons for optimism, 3 reasons to at least have a little bit of hope with him. And I'm gonna turn these into the Justice League of Optimism. We're going to call him the captain, back of the baseball card, the incredible BABIP, and something sample sizes. Because
you're going to make my head explode.
Because You can look at the back of his baseball card, and like you mentioned, for his career, according to Baseball Reference, if you average out the numbers that he has put together for his career on a 162 game basis, he is a 1.5 to 2 WAR player. That's solid. It's not spectacular, but that's solid.
Major leaguer.
Then you look at his BABIP last year. One of my favorite stats to look at, is the guy going to bounce back or not? He had a batting average on balls in play.
Actually, while you're there, before you move forward on that, because we're in off-season mode, let's kind of go back into talking about these stats as to what they are. Let's do a read. So when you're talking about BABIP.
So BABIP, batting average on balls in play. This is when a player makes contact in fair territory. How often does it turn into a hit? So the batting average on the balls in play. This isn't including home runs. This isn't including foul balls or, swings and misses, things like that. So this is just what the hitter put in play. Was he facing good defenses? Was he hitting it and finding gloves? Things like that. That's the case with Jeimer Candelario. In 2024, he had a 257 batting average on balls in play, where the league average, where the typical hitter across Major League Baseball had a 291 batting average. So he was almost 40 points lower than where the rest of the league was with this statistic. So there is some optimism that will find its level. That's the whole water finds its level thing. We're doing a whole lot of okay, well, back of the baseball card looks like this. That's not what last year was. Water finds its level. He was way down here. He's going to come back up. And then the last thing that we'll put into this is the amazing sample sizes. Let's do that. The amazing sample sizes, because in the months of May and June, he was everything that the Reds wanted him to be. I mean, he hit 11 of his 20 home runs in those 2 months. In fact, we can even shrink the sample size just to June. He had 8 of his 20 home runs in the month of June, 290 batting average, 591 slugging. That's what they want. They want him to be a big bopper. Even though he's never really been a big bopper, he's going to be their power threat in the 5, 6, 7 range of the lineup. Mm-hmm.
I want to jump to the comments for just a second, Jeff, because Scott Campbell asks a good question that also allows you to make a little bit of a tease. So Scott says, are the Reds looking too much at what a prospective player has done instead of scouting their potential? Seems like the Reds are looking to repeat the past too often. And this is actually a good point. Are we looking at who Candelario could be? Are we looking at who he was? And I think with a player with this type of a sample size, now we're talking about 9 years in Major League Baseball, you're not scouting anymore. You are looking at the body of work and saying, this is who we believe this guy is. But this is a great question about how the Reds approach scouting. And oddly enough, we can maybe get into that this week.
The good news is we have a Red Scout coming on the show later this week. Will be, I think it's either Thursday or Friday's episode. It just kind of depends on how some things play out. But we will definitely be getting into the weeds on the whole scouting thing. Because, this was something we talked about last year, where FanGraphs and some certain projection systems didn't love the Reds, where we were, pounding the table saying it was a playoff
we were
team.
mad about it.
Yeah,
we were mad about it.
The reason that they weren't doing that, the reason that projection systems didn't like the Reds, is that the only projectable guy that they had on the roster was Jeimer Candelario. He's the only guy that really had a back of the baseball card. Everybody else was rookie or second year players, and projection systems don't like that. They don't like having very small sample sizes to pay attention to. So that is why when you look at Jeimer Candelario, you don't have as much optimism as you have for a guy like CES, or even, I would say I'm more optimistic about Noelvi Marte having a good 2025, more so than I am Candelario, even though you have these numbers that say that.
Really?
These numbers, because I think Marte has a better ceiling when it comes talent-wise. But I think that Candelario's back of the baseball card is better than it was in 2024, but it's not amazing.
See, and I think I'm the exact opposite of you. I mean, if that's the comparison, if we're going to talk, and it's a good comparison because we're talking about third base, right? Mm-hmm. Who's going to play third base? I am more inclined to put my trust in Jeimer Candelario because of
the back of the baseball
at 9 years of back of the baseball card and know what he's capable of. Versus the only thing I know that Noelvi Marte knew how to do for sure was break the rules. That's the only thing I know. I don't know anything else with any consistency about who he is as a player. That's the only thing I know about him.
But the problem with that argument is if you expand that out to the rest of the team, then we're not confident in the team because they don't have enough of a back of a baseball card. And so
maybe that's fair. That's a fair place to be.
It's probably more of a discussion for an entirely another episode because I do want to keep this focused on Candelario. But Candelario himself, like the back of the baseball card shows one thing. And while we're looking at silver linings, it's important to note that not everything is silver. In fact, if you look at his Baseball Savant page, and I want to get into that here in a few minutes, it's blue. It's a lot of blue. And there's like literally no red whatsoever for 2024. And that's the biggest issue here when it comes to optimism for a turnaround. Sure. We're not making this political. We'll talk about that here in just a minute.
Today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to a variety of health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, just visit HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Do you love collecting trading cards, but you hate the price and all that great stuff? Arena Club has created a great alternative. ArenaClub.com is a place where you can go. It's like a digital marketplace to trade baseball, football, basketball, even Pokemon trading cards. And you can get graded gem mint cards, autographs, jersey cards, all that great stuff can be found on Arena Club. You buy the packs digitally. They have these things called slab packs where they have graded gem mint cards that you get to pull. And it's for the fraction of the price that you would pay for like an Ellie rookie card. And when you get the card that you want on their website, all you have to do is click retrieve and then you pay a small shipping fee and it's sent to you. Go to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB and you'll get 10% off your first slab pack. Go get yourself a hit over at arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use that code LOCKEDONMLB for 10% off your first purchase.
If you can't be with us here live on YouTube, make sure you take us with you when you are on the go. We are available on pretty much every single podcasting platform that there is out there. And if there's one you use that we're not on, I'd be shocked, but let us know about it and we can try and remedy that problem. We love talking Reds baseball with you, whether you're watching us from your office, from your house, listening to us in the car or at the gym. We want to talk Reds baseball with you. All right, Jeff, let's kind of wrap up and round out this candy conversation and then get into the comment section.
Yeah, and let me clarify the red blue stuff. I'm not talking politics. Baseball savant, red blue, red good, blue bad. That has nothing to do with politics. That's just how they color coded the numbers.
We made it through the whole campaign, and I almost screwed the whole thing up on the day after.
Look, we love the Reds. We're talking about Baseball Diamond. That's it. And when it comes to red on Baseball Savant, that means good. Blue means bad. There's a lot of blue on Jeimer Candelario's page. I mean, when you're talking about expected batting average, average exit velocity, hard hit percentage, bat speed, chase, whiff, walk rate, they're all well below league average. And they even like shade the blues. Like if you're a deep royal blue, that's real bad. That's where he is. And that is what gives me a little bit of pause. Knowing that there's the Justice League of Hope when it comes to captain back of the baseball card, the amazing small sample size, and what did I say? Oh, the incredible BABIP. The problem is the Dr. Doom Baseball Savant. I should have workshopped that more. Anyway, everything's blue on Baseball Savant, and that's where this really does feel
we're
like
going to end up with some really bad graphic at some point in time now.
I have some mock-ups here anyway, but no, I just, that's the thing that worries me a little bit here, is that the underlying numbers, the peripherals, the analytics, everybody's favorite word, don't love what Jeimer Candelario did last year. And part of that could be dealing with injuries and stuff, but part of that might just be who he is. And especially the defense, his outs above average was bottom 2% in the league.
Yeah, the defense was not great. I mean, you know, he kind of has, if you look at his defense in a vacuum, it screams DH at you, right? But
yes.
There's some interesting, you know, some of the everydayers in the comment section are, you know, making some really good points. And let's just grab a couple of them real quick. Carrie checks in and says that she thinks they wanted Candy to be that next batter up threat to kind of make it easier on everybody else, right? Like get better pitches for Ellie because Candy is coming, and it never really got there. Brian checks in and says he thinks they expected some veteran leadership from Candy that never really seemed to materialize, right? Brian says that he thinks that's something that he would expect Tito to be able to draw out of him. And I agree with that. I agree that Tito can do that. And we've seen that Tito went to the Dominican and sat down with Jeimer already, in addition to Noelvi Marte and Ellie De La Cruz. And you and I kind of pinged on that right away when it happened and said that we thought that was great that Tito did that. And I think that little bit that Brian mentions, I think that was probably part of the conversation of, you know, what Tito needs from Jeimer heading into 2025, especially when you consider he's spending time and doing off-season work with those younger guys down in the Dominican.
Yeah, $30 million committed to him, $27 million for the next 2 years, $3 million buyout means he's going to be here. And that means that Terry Francona needs to make sure he gets the best out of him no matter what he does. And the good thing for me is that this is something Terry Francona talked about a lot in his introductory press conference was, you know, I need to get to know these guys on a personal level. I need to form relationships with them, all this other stuff. What he really, and my brain like equated that to, okay, they're going to have some nice phone conversations, maybe a Zoom or something. I didn't think he was going to be flying down to the Dominican. I love how far he took this and how much he's like, I am invested in the players on this team. It is not about let's all get together in the boardroom at Great American Ballpark and figure out what this roster is going to look like. He literally is leaving that to Nick Kroll. He said this in his press conference that that's what he was going to do, and he was going to worry about the guys on the team, and he is showing that, and I absolutely love it. So I kind of go back to that comment from Pierre where he's just like, I trust Tito to get the best out of this roster, and that includes Jeimer Candelario. So I think that fuels the hopium that I have for Jeimer Candelario's turnaround.
And I think it can happen, Jeff. I think I'm landing the same spot I started when we began this conversation, which is that I trust the body of work. And I don't think at the ripe old age of 30 or whatever Jeimer is right now, I don't think that's gone, and he's suddenly forgotten how to play baseball. So I think a rebound is coming, a renaissance, if you will. And I'm looking forward to it. This from your friend Scott Campbell. Scott, glad you're with us. Jeff may want the incredible BABIP. I want your friendly neighborhood division title. How is that?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good point. I mean, obviously that's what this all leads into is, you know, Jeimer Candelario is going to be they need him to be a key part of this team. He was signed to be that. He was not last year. And that's a big reason why the Reds didn't meet their ultimate goal. I mean, you look at how Will Benson's season played out, how Jake Fraley's season played out, how TJ Friedel dealt with so many injuries, how Spencer Steer was good but not great. Like, things like that all played into it. But Jeimer Candelario was a bigger reason that I think most people want to admit as to why this Reds team did not reach its ultimate goal.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. Now go make your second listen, the Locked On MLB podcast. Our good buddy, Paul Francis Sullivan, you can call him Sully, is over there with a national baseball perspective, a pretty good sense of humor. And if you were a fan of Vin Scully, and I'm not saying that Sully is Vin Scully, but he does the same thing. He weaves in a story from 30 years ago that you didn't see coming and then brings you back around and gets it all tied back together with a nice bow. He's really good at that. You should go check it out. If you haven't done that, the link for his show is in the show description of our show today. You don't even have to go look for it. So go check that out. And we'll be back in your feed the rest of this week with questions and comments. Reds scouting. We got a scout coming in. We're going to do all of those things. Lots of Reds information for you this week. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the like button. Click the notification bell. You don't want to miss any of that because we're going to keep you locked on Reds every single